can Caleb Williams pull an Elway and go back to school? So I think historically here's some of the interesting things that happened historically, right? Eli Manning right? Eli Manning was drafted by the Chargers, and he was very upset. He really thought they were going to not draft him. He told them not to, and they traded him to Giants legend Philip Rivers, right? Who went number 4 overall. People forget in 2011, Andrew Luck was supposed to be the guy that came out. It was his redshirt sophomore season, and he was destined to be the number 1 overall pick. We knew Andrew Luck was going to be the number 1 overall pick. All right, come out. It's 2011. Panthers have the pick. And he didn't. He went back to school. He went back to Stanford. Cam Newton becomes the number 1 overall pick, and of course Luck goes number 1 overall in 2012 to the Indianapolis Colts. So can Caleb Williams do that? Go back to school? Clearly there's not enough NIL money to offset NFL contracts.
No, you're earning less, but you're earning, which is different to the dynamic it used to be.
And if you stay healthy, you're going to be number 1
and you're earning
the next year.
Millions. I mean, you're not earning, you're not sort of bringing home our salaries.
I also believe that we might, look, as a society, we overrate money anyway. And every time we talk about a player's decision, we only think about it through the lens of money. And some guys actually like being in college, might like being the quarterback at USC, might like actually trying to win a national championship, might like competing in the Big Ten next year, and not only think about their draft status. I don't know Caleb Williams. I don't know. So could he do that?
But the NIL dynamic changes. It removes a variable, right, which is some of these guys have to go to the NFL because they don't have money of any description, really, theoretically, right, back before NIL, even underhand, whatever. Theoretically, there was no money there, right? So if they didn't have independent wealth of some description, at some point you need the payment, right?
Like oil money.
Right. So you got to jump to the NFL because you can only go on so long without that money when it's sitting there available. NIL takes all that off the table, right? In theory, if you're a big college star now, you are earning to the point where you don't need to jump to the NFL to make the money, right? Unless you've had some very bad financial decisions in your life, you're fine. You don't have to do it. So it at least takes that variable off the table of, this guy might want to stay in college, but he can't really afford to financially. He's got to go. Now they can do whatever they want.
Yeah, I just don't know what the team is. Like, people are like, well, if the Bears have the number 1 overall pick, you might go back. Like, why? Why? Just because they have a bad history of...
Yes.
But does that actually matter?
Probably.
Because we also could get to the end of the year where there's a coaching change. And it could be, Lincoln Riley could be in the mix for the job, and it could be Lincoln Riley and Caleb Williams coming in together, or Caleb Williams, the Bears might go get this flashy offensive coach, or they might go get Ben Johnson or something, and it's like, of course I want to go to wherever the next hot, offensive coordinator. I bet Bobby Slowick's going to be the new head coach of the Bears, and of course Caleb Williams wants to go there.
I mean, it would be a bad organization, not a team with a bad coach, right? Like, if you looking at a team and you're like, this franchise has an institutional history of being a badly run franchise, and I don't see current evidence of that changing by the new people in charge, assuming they are new people at general manager and head coach, like, that would be the reason, right? And I don't know if you want to put Chicago into that bucket. Ryan Poles has made some good decisions. He's made some bad decisions. I don't know if you can sort of look at the last 20 years of Chicago history and say, yeah, Ryan Poles is just extending this nightmare another 5 years, But like, say, Arizona, when you look at those, like the NFLPA report card things, they rank really low on a bunch of those different categories. And they have a history of sort of turning over and mistakes and errors. And like, that might be a team where you look at them and say, I don't know if I want to go there.
Now, people would have said that about the Bengals.
Sure.
A few years ago.
Yeah.
Before
Joe
Burrow went
turn
there.
around a bad franchise. But
yeah. And I think, I don't know the reasons why Eli Manning did what he did. I'm not really sure exactly why Elway did what he did, other than he just didn't want to go to that franchise. But there are other people who are like, of course I want that challenge.
I think the Elway one was viewed like that. They viewed the Colts as not a good franchise at the time, right?
Yeah. And I don't know if Eli was just like, I want to be in New York. I want to, but they didn't trust the Chargers franchise either. But anyway, I think a lot of people are like, I want to be the guy that turns the Bears around.
Sure.
I want to be the guy that turns the Browns around, or the Bengals, or whatever it might be. And Burrow went and did that. So I don't know. I mean, I guess there's an opportunity for that to happen if you're Caleb Williams. I also think, and our friend Dane Brugler from The Athletic, before Caleb Williams had this horrible game against Notre Dame, was reiterating that he's called it razor thin between Caleb Williams and Drake May. There will be plenty of people who prefer Drake May to Caleb Williams. I don't think, even when Trevor Lawrence came out, and Trevor Lawrence was called the generational guy since Luck, since Manning, since Elway, there were people who put Zach Wilson above him.
There were people who put Fields above him.
There were people who put Fields above him. Now, there's enough people ranking things right now that you could find anybody with any kind of take, right? Sure. There was Zach Wilson in the 4th round takes, but
nailed it,
right? Of course. So there will be people that have Drake May over Caleb Williams. So that's the other thing at play here. Like, if, say, the Bears have the number 1 overall pick, Williams will know if he's their guy.
Right.
But there's a chance that he's not. There's a chance that Drake May's the guy, and that Caleb Williams could go to Arizona or to the Giants or to the Patriots or whoever else is next up on those picks there. So I don't know. I guess there's more of a chance that a quarterback might go back to school now because of NIL. Yes.
And I think whatever about Caleb Williams, at this point I'm kind of expecting Shedeur Sanders to go back to college. Between his NIL, which apparently is the most of any player in college football, and the fact that Deion Sanders, Shedeur Sanders, Shiloh Sanders, or the Sanderses, and the rest of that team are in year 1 at Colorado right now, and Caleb Williams is presumed to be the number 1 overall pick, et cetera. It sort of feels like that just makes all the sense in the world to go back and then next year aim at being the number 1 overall pick, in addition to Colorado maybe going on a bigger run and knocking off some good teams and maybe, actually challenging for something. That makes more sense to me than come out this year and be, the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th quarterback taken and whatever.
It looks like a potentially loaded QB class. I don't know if there's a whole bunch of elite prospects, but there's a whole bunch of starting caliber prospects. I think you've got Caleb Williams and Drake May who can be elite prospects, and then a bunch of other guys that could be QB3. I have to go on, Renner's got a new podcast.
I saw that.
I'm joining him this afternoon to rank the QBs.
You're going on, somebody else, was it Trevor went on previously?
He had Austin
on there. Austin was the first person, obviously.
It's just might as well just be a PFF podcast.
Yeah, and yet Renner. Nobody's reached out to me.
Well, soon.
Curious.
You're next. You want me to text Mike right now? See if he'll if he'll get you on the show.
Not at all.
I just think it's funny. I'm like, how long do you need? He said 15 to 20 minutes. And I'm like, I'll talk about Caleb Williams and NIL for 15 to 20 minutes. How am I going to rank 5 QBs?
That's one answer.
Yeah.
which sounds like Renner's perfect podcast.
Yeah.
I asked one question. Steve talks for 15 minutes and we're out.
The whole cadence when he was on the show was hilarious because I'd ask him a question and then, when I ask you a question, I start to stretch it out, let's surf Twitter a little bit, think about the next thing I'm going to say, listen to you a little bit, and then Renner would just give me a quick answer and throw it back to me. And I'm like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready to talk again. He's got to ramble like us. Got to learn. Then he'll be up for some awards someday. Yeah. Do some more rambling.
He'll be invited to apply for the podcast awards.
Do you have any other thoughts on that?
No, other than, I do think that it's a live possibility that if you're Caleb Williams, assuming your draft stock doesn't tank between now and when you have to decide, and you look at the draft order and you just decide top team at the top of the draft, that's not a good situation for me to go to. This can sink my career. I think there's a good chance that he would go back. Take a look at the landscape and go, not a chance. If that team is picking number 1, I'm going back to school.